Streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Ambers. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
No complaining. I don't want anybody saying anything about the hot weather today, knowing that we were in a studio here, Tim, months ago that we couldn't get heat. So this is enjoyable today. So I am not going to be the one to complain here today.
I will not complain only because I am comfortable in here. If I had to be outside, if I'm a manual a manual laborer, I think they get to complain. This is tough right now.
It's tough, but this is what you signed up for.
Not an 8-hour day in this.
93 degrees right now in Rochester. Welcome here to the sports bar. We're in summer. Gene Battaglia with you. Tim Schneider. Mike Danger is out this week, and we've got a great show lined up for you here today. You can reach us at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. You can write to us, our handle on X, The Fan Rochester. We're up on YouTube. We are up on Twitch. You've got some homemade hat on today if you're looking at
I do.
Terrible Time today. If you're anybody that wants to know what Tim looks like, it's kind of a cross between Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, maybe like if Tim Lincecum was 45 years old, that would be you.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
It could be worse.
Could be worse.
Be myself.
Yeah. Here's what we have coming up on the show today. Look, you're already probably thinking about the weekend, right? How could you not with this hot weather? And when we're reaching this period of NFL news, we've got some news today. We'll get to in a little bit, but it's the time, Tim, where I start thinking about who should be at the top of the first round. And this is the ideal time to talk a little fantasy football. We'll talk to our friend from the NFL Network, Michael F. Florio. He's coming up on the show today at 4:25. Matthew Fairburn from The Athletic at the bottom of this hour as Sabres GM Kevin Adams today speaking and people picking apart his comments. I'm quite honestly still surprised that Kevin Adams is getting out in front of the media. It's not quite Doug Whaley cringy, but we'll play some of the sound here as I think we're at the point now, Buffalo Sabres hockey, where like nothing is going to appease us until this team actually wins and makes the postseason. We'll talk to Matthew Fairburn for The Athletic about what the Sabres should do. What are the possibilities for this draft? J.J. Peterka, could there be a big trade in the works? Matthew Fairburn coming up at the bottom of this hour. But we also booked a third guest today and reached out to him last night. He's happy to come on. He writes for a bunch of lacrosse publications. He is the lacrosse journalist, in my opinion. He's the host of the Lacrosse Matrix podcast. Adam Levi will join us at the top of next hour. Again, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Those are the numbers to join us. And I'm not going to let this story die, Tim. The idea that the Rochester Nighthawks have one foot out the door, and couple things from last night. Nobody has corrected me on this, where I would like to say I had the story wrong on this, but nobody is stepping in and saying, hey, here's the new owner, and this is the reason why we have this delay. To me, what you had yesterday was a warning flare. It's almost like the ship is about ready to go down, but you know what, Rochester? We're going to give you one last chance here. If there's anybody who really wants this team, we're gonna step in. Or as I'm driving home last night, and this is on me. This is where I need to get as a better sports talk host. It kind of hit me like, oh, maybe this is it all along. If there was a buyer, and we know this team is on the market, but the buyer, Tim, wants to put the team in their market, it would be really better PR-wise for Terry Pegula to just have an intermediary, to give this a half beat here, basically. Like, you don't want to make it look like, hey, we sold the team and now they're moving to XYZ city.
Right.
You would want the league to do your dirty work. So it hit me thinking, why would the Pegulas just completely walk away? Just saying, hey, as of June 30th, we're done. No more. Well, doesn't the franchise have some value? Because it's hard for me to think that you're going to have a league that's going to allow another team to fold on their watch after this happened last year. Where are we going? So to me, that's what I fear here. But we haven't had another market that has come up and said, "Yep, we've heard it. It's us here."
Right. There's been rumors of expansion and relocation from 2 other markets, St. Louis being one of them, but there hasn't been any confirmation that this is the team that's going to be taking that spot. The longer it takes, like the closer we get to June 30th, the more I am ready to jump all in on your side of it. When it first came out, it was like, all right, let's wait and see. The writing might be on the wall, but it's not quite in pen.
Would have written that. That was a goodbye, we're sorry. Now, kind of a line, because this is how I think. And, credit, we always want to source things here. And this was Sal Majorana, who's a good friend of the show, Democrat and Chronicle, longtime Buffalo Bills reporter. I've known him for years. He got a hold of Pete Coelho, but Pete Coelho dropping another story here. Because every year we go through okay, we think the Bills are back. Okay, we think the Bills are back. Apparently, the Buffalo Bills and St. John Fisher University are negotiating something more than a 1-year deal.
That's big.
That's big. And you know what that is also, Tim?
A pivot and a twist.
That's a pivot with a capital P.
That is, let's talk about this instead, please. We have other good things happening in Rochester, New York. Ignore the bad stuff. Ignore the negative. Please
let's
talk about how the Bills are
hey,
staying.
you really like training camp here in Rochester? Well, we're going to keep it here. And
yes, we do, by the way.
Yeah, we
give us
do
everything.
Love it.
Give
we
us
do
more.
love it.
Give us the Nighthawks, too.
So that I like... I don't think so I'm not crazy for thinking, this is the time we want to put this out there that we're talking to Fisher here.
Here's the good stuff. Yeah. Let's hide the bad and let's keep positive. And the Bills are here. The Amerks are here. The Nighthawks are going to go away, but nobody talk about it because we don't want to talk about the negative.
No, we need to talk about the positive. And I would just ask, okay, like, why now? Why are we all of a sudden talking about multi-year thing with St. John Fisher? This is the one thing I came up with. Well, if you want some sort of improvements to facilities, which, okay, Fisher's great. Like, as far as what the Bills have right now, there's not really a glaring need. But let's just say, hey, we want this on this field. Can you build this? Can you make sure? Like, that would be the things you would ask for in return. The one thing I would do with Fisher is but it would never happen, is Groundy Stadium. Would you actually install grass there? Can you imagine going back to previous head coaches, you would have the team practicing at night on Groundy Stadium turf, and it wasn't a bad thing. But now turf is bad, and it gets really hot, and now you can watch the kickers do their thing, but that's pretty much all you're – and maybe the random wide receiver defensive back working on a jug machine. Yeah.
And I mean, if that's what you have to do to get what you want, I mean, everybody always wants more. What they have there is great. But if there's an opportunity to get more, I mean, I guess why not ask for it?
Well, and as I'm saying that, let me just, because if somebody's listening for Fisher, like that's used for multiple teams and multiple seasons. There's no way that they could go grass.
It's not a feasible option. And they've got the field next to it, which is just fine. That's an NFL class facility, grass field that gets what needs to be done on that field. They have what they need. But again, when you're a billionaire, you always want more.
I did reach out to somebody, and I got to keep this person anonymous when it came to the Nighthawks. And this person just said they were aware of the situation. They were approached. I'm like, oh, okay. Now, I don't have a timeline, but just tells me that, okay, maybe the Sabres actually didn't, the Sabres, they're one entity, right? The Nighthawks put the for sale sign, but they were actually putting out local feelers. Like, they've been putting out local feelers for over a year. The person that buys this team, I'm just talking about the perfect scenario, which I don't think is going to happen, but if it were to, Tim, you would want to give that person, that business, a victory lap. You would want them to say, you did something for our hometown. This is exciting. And how would you improve? And the funny thing about this, Tim, is maybe this is a Western New York mentality or whatever it is, and this is like the last thing on my mind, but people bitching about the uniforms. Like, well, if we get a new owner, we got to go back to purple and teal. Here's my take on this. Who gives a damn about what color the uniform? Honestly. Like, yes, that's nostalgic, and yes, they won uniforms, and yes, it screams 1990s to me. As long as the team's here, wear whatever you want.
Yeah, the uniforms are preferred, the old version, at least in my opinion, and it seems to be the consensus. But if it means the difference between having a team and not having a team, you can wear what you've got now and stick around.
Yeah, that would not be question number one. Like, if there were to be somebody that would come in and save the team, hey, are we going back to the old uniforms? No. I would want to know, okay, how do we improve this roster? How do we sell more tickets?
How do we get to the next step and knock the Bandits off their pedestal?
Yeah.
Especially with the owner being the same owner that just got rid of us. Already it's a rivalry. Now it's a personal rivalry.
Yeah, and Adam, Levi, who will join us next hour, there are people who have worked years, decades with the Nighthawks through different ownership groups, whether it was Donner, whether it was Kurt Stiers, whether it was Terry Pagula. I'm thinking of a guy like Craig Rybczynski, who is like Mr. Lacrosse in this town. These are the people that actually I'm concerned about. Like, how do you...
That's been their life.
Yeah. Are you going to relocate? Or are you just going to be out of a job and doing something else? These are the things that... And if you're... like, this would be my question to Pete Coelho. Like, are you going to make sure that every Nighthawk employee has a position, whether that's with the Amerks, the Bills, the Sabres, one of your entities? Yes or no?
You have to, as a civilian, as a human being, you look out for others. If you're ripping out their lifeblood from under them, you have to give them something in return, right? I mean, that's just a logical, respectful thing to do. Like, I understand business is business, fine. You have to do what you have to do to get your money. But to take that money from others to make sure that you keep yours, kind of messed up.
Well, that is business, and we should point out when the pandemic hit, there were layoffs in a lot of places, including at the time it was called Pagula Sports and Entertainment. So, like, no business isn't immune for that, but we don't, as fans, we don't like mixing sports and business.
Correct.
We just don't. Like, I don't want to be reminded of this, and we got a tweet yesterday. Hey, what about my son? This is our thing. Like, I went home yesterday. My son Kyle, shame on him for not listening yesterday. Like, hey, did you hear about the Nighthawks? No. Oh my gosh, you're kidding. I'm like, yeah. Can you imagine that? We might have gone to their last game, not even known it.
That is an interesting caveat now with hindsight. Like, those are memories that it was a whatever game at that time.
Yeah. Now
it's a memory. It's a lasting thing. Like, I was at the last one potentially.
Well, we could say that's the last one that's owned by that current ownership. Under this regime. And then what happens next? So these are always the stories, where I can say where I think this is headed, but I'm not 100% sure. And we're inviting in an expert, 4 o'clock, Adam Levi from Inside Lacrosse, also the Lacrosse Matrix podcast will be joining us. We did have Kevin Adams talking today.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Pick one soundbite here, Tim, whatever you like there. Tell me what we got coming up.
Well, he feels bad for the fans because apparently we are being lied to through the rumor mill.
I get memos on my desk every morning from PR of things, and if I'm being honest, I feel bad for our fans. The stuff that's out there, there's so much misinformation, so much of it's nonsense. I mean, someone that has no idea what they're talking about reporting that we were going to buy Sammy out. We've never had that conversation once. It's ridiculous. So I don't even think it's worth me really getting into it, but I guess I'd just leave it at that.
The grand champion of the Wake Up and Do Nothing challenge, Kevin Adams.
All right. There's so much in that soundbite. Tim, can we let this breathe and let's play this again? And look, we have a lot of managers listening, a lot of business leaders, a lot of decision. Is this an appropriate way just to say, no, that's actually not true?
I get memos on my desk every morning from PR of things, and if I'm being honest, I feel bad for our fans. The stuff that's out there, there's so much misinformation, so much of it's nonsense. I mean, someone that has no idea what they're talking about reporting that we were going to buy Sammy out. We've never had that conversation once. It's ridiculous. So I don't even think it's worth me really getting into it, but I guess I'd just leave it at that.
Okay. Not worth you getting into. Here's how you can control your messaging, right? You can make yourself a little bit more available. You can have your people call up the person in question, say, no, that's not true. But if you're saying that you feel sorry for the fans because what you're pointing to is fake news, you should feel sorry for the fans that, how many years?
14.
14! That's why you should feel sorry for the fans. We've lived through all this, and this is the reason why fans should feel sorry. Oh, well, you're getting misinformation. By the way, it's actually a good topic. Should they buy out Matthias Samuelsson? And I know you want to defend your guy, but that's a GM who's embarrassed that he went way out of his way to pay somebody who didn't deserve that money. And now you're blaming reporters?
It's actually a good idea.
It's
that
actually
should be
a good
done.
idea.
Do it, Kevin. Mr. Adams, I think it's time to actually take that idea. It might be misinformation, but that light bulb should go off as soon as you hear that rumor yourself. It's like, oh, actually, that's something we should consider. Do it. Do something, anything.
And practice this. Do not talk in cliches, okay? Memos coming across my desk. This isn't 1975.
Got
okay?
a fax today.
No, there is no such thing as a memo. You might get a note by email. You might just get something like, hey, here's where it is. Stop with that.
Got a text.
That's use word salad. If you are focused on somebody criticizing you for the Samuelsson deal, I don't know what to tell you.
Every time he speaks, it's like a fireable offense. And he's still employed, like gainfully employed, like gleefully gainfully employed. They are boasting about how employed he is. Every time he goes out up into a microphone, it's like, why are you still here? And he's like,
yeah.
I ain't going anywhere.
We have a new general manager. His name's Tim Wenger. He also oversees WBEN and WGR. These are the things we can say here in Rochester, Tim. Like, honestly, Kevin Adams, word salad. Don't embarrass yourself with those quotes, buddy. You are going over the top to defend. It's not a questionable move. It was a bad move to give Samuelsson that money. Just a bad one. The right move would actually be to buy him out.
You can make a mistake and fix it. That is allowed. You can own up to mistakes and just eat it. Like, we made a bad deal. Here's how we're going to fix it. But instead, claiming that it's the worst idea that he's ever heard, essentially, and that we're being lied to because it reached the airwaves. What are we doing, man? Do something.
When Mike Danger's out, if the Mets are going to go into the tank, I'm just kind of happy he's overseas, and maybe he's not paying attention.
It's been a rough couple days.
I don't think this is turning around, Tim. Frankie Montas is starting tonight for New York, and there's only one reason. They don't have anybody else. Like, this is why the Dodgers, in this day and age, you can't just have 5 starters and just be that. No, you've got to have, like, 10. And for the Mets, who lost McGill, They lost their ace, with delivering the fourth ball there in Senga. And this is where we're at. Like, this is sad. Blackburn starting last night, he gave you as much as he could, and now we're promoting Frankie Montas. The Braves right now only 5 games below 500. I can almost hear Dan Fate starting to cackle that way. All the baseball under the lights tonight, as the Mets now falling behind a little bit in the NL East. Yankees, boy, Cincinnati. That's a team that. Did you know they're above 500? The Reds at 41-38.
It's the Terry Francona.
It is.
He's a winner. I don't know. I don't know how.
He's a winner.
But he also
that
finds
ownership,
the right place.
that ownership is loserish. So that's a team that, all right, that's a fun team with a budding star in L.A. De La Cruz. I was joking with Yankee fans. He'll look good in pinstripes, at some point.
It's inevitable.
It's
all
inevitable. Yeah, but with the way the Reds are run, they're not going to go out there and make the necessary move to, let's go for the wild card. Let's actually try to win a playoff series. That's kind of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit.
Right. They're over 500, but they're still in 4th place in their division with a lot of ground to make up because the Cubs are somehow one of the hottest teams in the sport.
Let's talk to our buddy Matthew Fairburn from The Athletic. Talk a little bit about Kevin Adams today. We'll have time for your calls as well. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. This is the Sports Bar here on The Fan Rochester. Getting into the Hall of Fame, the former Buffalo Sabre. Sabres news today as General Manager Kevin Adams meeting with the media in advance of Friday's start of the NHL draft. Adams hitting on other topics, too, including the talk of trading J.J. Peterka.
I don't want to say yes or no because I just don't think it's the right time. And I can probably, after the draft and when we have other conversations, get into more specifics on things. But I just don't think it's fair to the player, to be honest with you, to really even respond to that. I think it's just better to keep it to the fact that we have a plan.
Matthew Fairburn from The Athletic will join us next here in the Sports Bar. One hot night here for the Red Wings, opening a series against Syracuse, the Yankees in Cincinnati, the Mets hosting the Braves. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. You're hanging out in the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Busy day for Sabres news. General Manager Kevin Adams speaking. And joining us right now, Matthew Fairburn from The Athletic, who has a nice piece up talking about one of the possible trade pieces, J.J. Peterka. Matthew, always appreciate the time today. And I guess, like before we get to Peterka, we have that breaking news. McGillney finally gets into the Hall of Fame. You're just kind of reaction to that, Matthew.
Yeah, well, long overdue, I would say. If you ask a lot of people around hockey, a guy that had the numbers, but maybe the reputation that followed him made it tough for him to get in on the first however many cracks it was. But pretty cool to have that finally come to fruition for him, a guy that I know a lot of people around here loved watching, and he did a lot of special things.
Yeah, Zdeno Chara also getting in as we're just kind of absorbing this right now in real time, as we'll have more here coming up in the Sports Bar. Matthew, are we expecting big things? Like for J.J. Peterka, what is the market, would you think, for a potential trade?
The market's really strong. The market is definitely big. I mean, there's a lot of teams interested. I think what happened is that his name got out there, and it became a runaway train of calls for the Sabres, right? Like, not a guy they were actively looking to move, but as soon as it became clear that for whatever reason, contract, location, market size, whatever, it seems like as an RFA, he has a little. Once that got out there, they've gotten a lot of calls. Like if they move J.J. Peterka, the only way to do it is significant return, and one that would help their NHL.
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
Trying to get futures or anything like that. So I think there's definitely a market out. They'll get to the point where they feel like they need to trade him.
Yeah, we're fighting through the connection here, but we'll do our best here. Matthew Fairburn from The Athletic joining us here in the Sports Bar. So is part of that, and you kind of hit on this, I'm just wondering, hey, you've seen other players find great success in their NHL careers when it comes to winning after they leave Buffalo, and we have to kind of acknowledge this. I mean, is that part of it too, that he might have went to management or whatever the season-ending exit interview process is and said, if there's an opportunity to move on here, do we know any truth to that, or are we just kind of speculating that that's part of the story here, Matthew?
I think we can say confidently that he would be open to a change of scenery. That's been out there. Elliot Friedman and others have mentioned that. And if he wanted to deny that, if Kevin Adams wanted to deny that, if J.J. Peterka wanted to deny that, there's been plenty of time for that to happen, right? They haven't denied that a change of scenery is something the player would welcome. Now, what is the extent? All of these things exist on a scale, right? Is this I'm not interested in signing long-term? Is this, I absolutely refuse to play for this team going forward? He only has so much leverage. They have 4 more years of team control on Peterka before he becomes an unrestricted free agent. So to an extent, Kevin Adams has to dig in a little bit because you can't just let every player who's a little bit disgruntled line up and get traded out of town for the reason that you mentioned, that a lot of these guys go on to do better things and become the best version of themselves outside of Buffalo. So you have to dig in at some point. But I think it's fair to draw the conclusion that Peterka would at the very least be open to a change of scenery. It's just hard to gauge exactly how unhappy is he. Can you get to a point where he's happy here and happy to come back and continue to play here? How much of this is just contract negotiations in general, right? Trying to drive up your price. There's a lot of factors to it that are hard to pinpoint, but I think one thing that's clear is you don't pop up like this in trade rumors on all these trade boards with all these insiders by accident. You know, his name's out there for a reason, and it's not because the Sabres want to trade him, that's for sure.
So the draft is coming up Friday, but we're going to have this trade talk, and then right behind Friday, it's July 1st, all this movement here in a rapid-fire pace here. Matthew Fairburn from The Athletic covering the Buffalo Sabres, our guest here in the Sports Bar. If it's not Peterka, Matthew, who are some of the other names, Sabre veterans, or maybe it's a prospect or two? Who are some of the more likely players that might be on the move on the trading block here from Buffalo?
I think Bowen Byram is definitely out there as well. Another guy that probably would welcome a change of scenery if for no other reason that he would get more power play time somewhere else. Hired a new agent this offseason. He's 2 years away from unrestricted free agency. He's a restricted free agent as well. That gives him leverage. The leverage being if he wants a big contract, you know, and digs in on a big number, that could make it hard for the Sabres to keep him around. That's a name I certainly am watching, and I think everybody's been watching over the last few weeks, another guy that they are gauging the market on. Another one that's, you know, his name came up today in the press conference is Matthias Samuelsson. Kevin Adams said, you know, the Sabres it's ridiculous. They haven't had the thought at all that they would buy him out. Which is funny because, I don't know, admitting that you haven't talked about buying him out to me is weird because you should be talking about everything, I would think, as a team, as a front office. But I think that strikes me as if Matthias Samuelsson is going to leave, it's going to be because they trade him. Like, I think they're not going to openly admit they're thinking about buying him out because that would ruin his trade market. They are contract off the books that would certainly be something they should explore. Those are some names. I guess prospect-wise, I wouldn't be surprised if everything is on the table from the prospects because they need to be looking at ways to make their NHL team better. And part of the way you do that is by keeping some of these prospects on the table, whether that's Roseanne. Osland would be in a bigger deal, I would think. You know, Komarov, guys like that they're probably not eager to move off of like a Hellenius this early, but maybe some of the guys that are further along in their development, I think all of that has to be on the table because clearly the pressure is on for the Sabres to end this drought.
And Matthew, I thought the tone of the answer from and we played it earlier before you came on from Kevin Adams in terms of, you know, talking about a memo on the desk, and I feel sorry for the fans for this misinformation, and part of me just thinks, all right, that's a guy who's maybe getting defensive over a move he made at the time. Even we question it. I mean, when you look at the tenure of of Kevin Adams here, I would assume you would have thought, like, giving Samuelsson now in hindsight, maybe that would be a mistake. And if so, like, where does that rank in terms of the missteps here for Kevin Adams in his tenure?
Yeah, it wasn't a great contract, that's for sure. I mean, it was a calculated risk at the time and one that hasn't paid off because of injuries and other factors. You know, I think it speaks to sort of the bigger picture issue with Kevin Adams has been that a few of those gambles haven't worked out, but also that by and large, a lot of people in the organization, player-wise and maybe elsewhere, have gotten things before they've fully earned them. And that's the case with Matthias Samuelsson, who had 52 NHL games when he signed that 7-year contract worth more than $4 million a year.
Yeah.
Like, Owen Power only had, one real season under his belt. Like, these, before he gets $8 million a year, Peterka and Quinn being anointed as these top 6 guys before fully earning it and getting handed NHL spots. Like, there's been a lot of that. And I mean, last time I was on with you guys, we were talking about Kevin Adams getting a job that he hadn't fully gone through the proper grind to get. So that's probably the bigger symptom, or the bigger issue that these other things are just symptoms of. Even Samuelsson, I look at getting the A on his jersey, before he'd really fully earned that contract, right? Like, so same probably goes for Cousins, not fully earning the A. And that stuff tends to matter when you're talking about accountability as this big buzzword in an organization, that maybe it hasn't started in the appropriate places. And it's more than just talking about accountability. There need to be actions too.
Before we get your thoughts on the draft, then you also have free agency, and that's a piece of the puzzle here. And we're not expecting the Sabres to make a big swing, or are they? We know the names out there. You have the guys from Florida, and maybe one of them springs free. You have Marner, you have other guys, but what should be the expectation here for Sabre fans, just in terms of the free agency front here, Matthew?
I don't have huge expectations. I think they'll be shopping, but you have to remember that when it says they have $21-23 million in cap space, whatever Puckpedia is calculating right now, they've got 5 or 6 RFAs, right? They've got Peterka, Byram, Ryan McLeod, Jack Quinn, Devin Levi, and Jacob Bernard-Docker. Those guys are going to eat up a big chunk of that space, and so they don't have as much to play with in free agency. And it's probably the hardest way in which they can accumulate talent, given the fact that all things being equal, players don't want to come to Buffalo, right? They're gonna go to a team that can win. They're gonna go to a market that's bigger. They're gonna go to a place that has better weather. All 3 of those things aren't working in Buffalo's favor at the moment. They don't win. They don't have great weather, and it's one of the smaller markets in the league. So it's not the most efficient way for them to improve the team. And I don't know exactly how much space they're going to have to work with until we figure out what are they going to do with Peterka. If they do keep him, he's going to cost a lot of money. Same goes for Byram. McLeod could probably be pushing $4 or $5 million a year on his next contract. And then you've got, the smaller deals with Quinn, Levi, Bernard-Docker that are going to eat up a little bit of space. So free agency maybe isn't, the perfect route. It's also a pretty weak free agent class after Marner, Ekblad, Marchand, Bennett. Beyond that, you've got Nikolai Ehlers, but in terms of guys that could really impact, maybe, the name that if you're taking a big swing that's worth taking one is John Tavares. If he shakes free in Toronto, Ekblad would be worth taking a big swing at if he becomes available. I'm looking at defense, finding a grizzled veteran that can play a defensive, physical role on the blue line. And then at forward, somebody that could fortify their center depth a little bit and add a little bit of edge, a little bit of sandpaper grit, whatever word you want to use, but also capable of playing high in the lineup. Those are probably their biggest needs going into free agency.
As far as needs overall, where do you put goaltending? It's just a loaded topic, right? And when you talk to fans here, like everybody's kind of got an opinion on UPL and Devin Levi. And if one of the two takes a step forward this year, we're going to be fine. Matthew, I can't guarantee that. I could say that, hey, Devin Levi, I don't know what more he can prove here in the American Hockey League, but should the Buffalo Sabres actually take this would be unexpected, but maybe even move one of the two and bring in somebody else. What's your thoughts here on how they should handle the goaltending situation? Because I'll tell you this, they're not going to go anywhere if they got what they did last year out of that position.
No, they definitely won't. I think there's a degree of confidence in both Luukkonen and Levi organizationally, but I don't think they've closed the door on Levi playing in Rochester next year. And so if that's still on the table, you need to find some sort of depth, right? You need to find somebody to play with Luukkonen. They saw the value at the end of the year with Reimer playing the way that he did, having a stable veteran really helped the team overall. Could they move one of those guys? They could. It would rank among the more surprising things that could happen in the next week. If it happened, it would probably be Luukkonen, and you'd probably be getting another goalie back, would be my guess, right? Is if you're taking a swing on a big-time goalie that you think can upgrade and you can give a team, a goalie back in return. I would be pretty surprised if that happened, but you're not wrong in saying that it's a kind of a sneaky question mark on this team, given how bad they were there last year. But I think they really do believe if they play better defensively that they'll get better goaltending. If not what they had 2 years ago, closer to that version of Luukkonen that they saw towards the end of 23-24.
The idea, and the Sabres, and pretty much Kevin Adams will say this every year when it comes to they're not married to the number 9 pick, but Matthew, this isn't the NFL draft. It's a little more difficult, although you did have Philadelphia just putting in pick number 10 to Anaheim. You do have the Rangers essentially giving a pick as part of a previous deal to Pittsburgh, but let's just assume the Sabres stay at number 9. You've looked at the mocks here, and I'm not going to pretend that I've scouted any of these players here, but could there be something actually that could help the Sabres? I mean, I'm sure there would be somebody that you could develop here in Rochester, but we're not at that point anymore. You want guys that can help today. So are they going to take more of that approach, take somebody who's more tailor-made for the NHL in the year 2025?
It's not super realistic to think somebody at 9 will help the NHL roster unless somebody unexpected falls. And there's a chance that a Porter Martone or a James Higgins falls, and that would be a remarkable stroke of good fortune for the Sabres. And if it's not one of those two players, it's not somebody that's going to help. It doesn't really matter if you take the more NHL-ready guy, like a guy at 9 most of the time. I mean, they had Zach Benson jump in right away and help out, but just not the most realistic outcome for them. I still could see them sitting at 9 and taking a player, and their prospect pool isn't as strong as it used to be. It's more middle of the pack now because so many of the guys are in the NHL and they've graduated so many guys. So I think, Martone and Higgins are the dream scenario, maybe even a Brady Martin if he were to fall. That would be great. Otherwise, I think you're looking at Roger McQueen, Radim Mertka, Keishon Aitchison, that level of player, maybe Victor Eklund, Swedish winger. I think it's the best player available. You're looking for high-end talent. You're looking for the biggest upside you can find at 9. If there's a team that can take a risk on Roger McQueen's injury history, it's the Sabres, right? You need difference makers. And that doesn't, to me, mean you need a guy that's NHL ready. I think you need the highest ceiling you can possibly find at 9.
Matthew, one last one. You had the Zegras trade yesterday. Is that something the Sabres should have been on? Is that something that's going to help Philadelphia get back to the postseason?
I mean, it might help Philadelphia. I think it's a pretty good move for Philadelphia. Zegras I had very little interest in for the Sabres. For a variety of reasons. He's already got that big cap number. He's going to need another big deal. He's sort of like this, especially after they made the Cousins for Norris trade. It's I don't need Zegras. I don't need the potential headache, the unfulfilled potential. I feel like there's enough of that on this team and not the type of player I'm looking for, I guess.
Appreciate I thought you cut out there, Matthew. My apologies. Go ahead.
You have to also consider the opportunity cost of trading, signing that player, the cap dollars, all those things. So for a lot of reasons, Zegras wasn't really somebody I was super interested in.
Matthew Fairburn from The Athletic. Matthew, tell everybody look, a lot of news is going to be happening over the next week and a half here with not just the Buffalo Sabres but the NHL. What can we check out here at The Athletic here in advance of that?
Yeah, there's going to be plenty of stuff. Like you said, we've got some trade fits for Peterka and Byram up there. Should have a column off of Kevin's availability up on the site shortly. Few other off-season related, favorite targets and things they should do coming in the next few days. And then, of course, wall-to-wall coverage come the draft and whatever it is Kevin Adams decides to do to reshape this roster.
Matthew, appreciate it. In such a busy day here today. try to stay cool. I hope you have air conditioning working at your home.
I don't have it in my car, so which is where I'm coming to you from. So I feel like I just had a good shift out on the ice right now.
There you go.
After doing this,
there you go. You don't need to
run around the sports car.
No cardio. Just sit in your car there and talk to us, Matthew. That's
just a sauna. Just a little sauna session while getting in some takes with you guys. So it was good.
Matthew, appreciate it. Let's talk again over the summer. Have a good one, and if we don't talk, enjoy the 4th here, bud.
Talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks. Matthew Fairburn from The Athletic, longtime friend of the sports bar. I am driving around my daughter's car, and it has no AC. But I'm fine with that. I just kind of roll down the windows, and I'm just kind of letting the breeze come in.
I sat in my car for like 3 minutes when I got here.
Yeah.
And I was sweating profusely in the 3 minutes that my car was off. So to sit in there, hopefully he was moving around and the window couldn't be down, I'm assuming. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to hear him very well.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably not a very comfortable 20 minutes out of Matthew Fairburn. Hopefully, he's got a Post-it note that says, like, he's okay, he's got water.
Listen, I would have been, like, walking around or just gotten out of the car at that point. But, look, we always appreciate when our guys in Buffalo give us a little bit of time here today. Levi starting in Rochester. Look, I know Amherst fans would love that.
There's a lot of Dustin Wolf in Devin Levi's path and a lot of Ryan Miller in Devin Levi's path. I think that maybe not a full year, but I think beginning in Rochester in October is probably the move just to ensure him guaranteed playing time. He'll be the workhorse rather than the A1, A2 split that is probably what ends up being the result in Buffalo come that time. It's
going to be another stopgap guy in Buffalo for a goaltender. If you think, hey, you're going to get this goalie that is going to be exquisite, and remember, the debate years ago is not apples to apples, but Hellebuck was on the free, and look, he didn't win a cup, but he's done great things with Winnipeg. But are you going to get that? The guy last year, Ottinger, with Dallas. Well, seeing that they fired the coach, I don't think he's going to be on the market.
Those are two of the best goalies in the world.
Yep.
If Devin Levi can become that, sign me all the way up. He's already proven that he is an all-star goalie in the American Hockey League. That's not his end goal. That's not the organization's end goal for him to just dominate here in Rochester. It's awesome for here while it's happening, but he's got to make that leap for everybody to be satisfied.
Yeah, I don't have concerns about Levi. Levi will go up. He'll do some good things. He'll have some things that's going to, in Buffalo, that people get upset about. It's UPL that...
Yeah, they gave him the money,
and then
now
what
he's got
happened?
to earn it.
Now what happened with that?
It's goalies are a fickle breed, and sometimes you're on and sometimes you're off. And last year, he just didn't have it. James Reimer became the starter towards the end of the year there. He played great, but it was far too late, and he's not supposed to be the guy. So hopefully UPL can figure out what went wrong last year, and again, same thing, make that jump and fix that issue that the Sabres have had for a number of years now.
Kevin Adams speaking to the media. If you can play this once again, Tim. This was Matthias Samuelsson. A real strange denial that the Sabres were considering to buy him out.
I get memos on my desk every morning from PR of things, and if I'm being honest, I feel bad for our fans. The stuff that's out there, there's so much misinformation, so much of it's nonsense. I mean, someone that has no idea what they're talking about reporting that we were going to buy Sammy out. We've never had that conversation once. It's ridiculous. So I don't even think it's worth me really getting into it, but I guess I'd just leave it at that.
Matthew pointing out something that in that we've never had that conversation once. I always say this, conversation is a loser word. It just is. Kevin, please stop using that. Get that out of your vernacular. Doers do. They take action. Losers, well, we talk about it. We have a conversation. You didn't have a conversation. You didn't even discuss, all right, how would this look? You're lying.
If he's not lying, that's an even larger problem.
Right.
So, I mean, nobody ever tells the truth in the general manager role, but for Kevin Adams to do it so gleefully every time he stands in front of a microphone, it's agonizing.
Yeah, but now to blame the media, no, there's a memos come across my desk. Nothing, no memo
You got a
comes
text
across.
that somebody's talking about you.
Yeah. You got
Drives
rabbit
me
ears,
nuts.
buddy.
Drives me nuts.
Rabbit ears.
14 years. Keep it going.
Will they catch the Buffalo Bills? See, the thing with the Bills, Tim, they always gave you hope. They were always going into, whether it was T.O. or here's the new head coach or, oh my gosh, we just lost this last game of the Steelers. Look how close we were. You haven't even had that.
Kind of have, and that's a problem too. It's like every year is supposed to be the year that it's over, and it's by game 20, it's nope. This ain't it. Here we are again.
By mid-March, it's like, okay, that's it. How's next season going to look? I mean, it's crazy that we've been doing this show now. This is going to be year number 9, and then you tack on 5 more years before that.
My entire time here, like I was brought in to work Sabres games. I have not worked a single Sabres playoff game. The drought lasts my entire career in this building.
Fantastic.
It feels awesome.
We will talk. Where is this Nighthawk story potentially headed? Well, somebody who covers the National Lacrosse League. His name is Adam Levi. He will join us next. He's the host of the Lacrosse Matrix podcast, and if you're a lacrosse person, you probably read his work somewhere. Adam's going to give us a few minutes here as we're going to discuss the angles here. Are we losing the Nighthawks? It certainly seems that way. We'll get the thoughts of Adam coming up. Also, some fantasy football talk. Michael F. Florio, who is a card-carrying member of Bills Mafia. So we'll also get his Bills thoughts. Time for your calls as well at 866-4FAN, 866-4326 here on the Fan Rochester.
WNIBF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
Sabres GM Kevin Adams meeting today with the media. This in advance of the start of the NHL draft on Friday. Adams saying he's not married to the number 9 overall pick.
I don't think you want to go into it saying, "Hey, I'm just moving this pick no matter what." These are valuable picks, and but you're open to everything. And trust me, the league knows that I'm absolutely open to moving pick 9 if it's the right deal for us.
The Hockey Hall of Fame class announced, and yes, former Buffalo Sabre Alexander Mogilny does get in. The class also includes Joe Thornton, Zdeno Chara, and Duncan Keith. Hot one tonight for the Red Wings. For those outside the Rochester area right now, it's 93 degrees here. They open a series at home against Syracuse tonight. The Yankees lost the opener in Cincinnati. Same two teams tonight in Ohio. The Mets hosting the Braves. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
The Celtics are reportedly sending Drew Holiday to the Blazers for Anthony Simons and 2 second-rounders.
The Knicks are set to interview Minnesota Timberwolves assistant coach Mike Nori. This Knicks coaching search, no matter who they end up hiring, should be considered a failure.
It's not a failure.
The NBA draft. Mike Danger.
We're about accountability here at the Sports Bar.
Gene Battaglia.
We are not Buffalo Jr. in this town. Does everybody understand that? We're not Buffalo Jr.
I still can't believe you're trying to get me fired.
Good job, birthday boy.
All the hockey is done.
Oh.
The Calder Cup was awarded last night.
The NHL draft.
The league knows that I'm absolutely open to moving pick 9 if it's the right deal for us.
JJ Peterka.
Aaron Rodgers told Pat McAfee this coming season is likely his last.
I think I get to say it because I am skinny. That guy's fat.
Fat.
Braves held off the Mets 3-2, sending New York to their 9th loss in 10 games.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Hour number 2 here, and do not complain about this hot weather. This is the stuff we live for here in Rochester. Go on, enjoy this tonight. The Wings opening a series against Syracuse. They're calling it Opening Day 2.0. This is where they reset the standings. Like that's going to matter with the Nationals.
Hopefully the second half goes better.
Yeah, you couldn't go much worse. Although they come in on a winning streak, though. Who knew? 5 in a row they've won entering tonight. Boy, we love the Red Wings. We love the Amherst. We love the Nighthawks. We don't want to lose the Rochester Nighthawks. And the story yesterday that was kind of buried from Pagula Sports Entertainment. Hey, we've got a 5-year lease agreement here with the Amherst. What about the Nighthawks? Oh, and you read the statement. And helping us try to figure out, all right, where this story may be headed. First time on the show, we welcome in, great lacrosse journalist. He covers the National Lacrosse League. Adam Levy joining us. Adam, appreciate the time here. And you read the statement. You talked to people. I guess let's just kind of start with just kind of your overall thoughts here on – boy, just a franchise that right now, their time in Rochester, Adam, to us, looks like it's in jeopardy. Adam, how are you?
Well, Gene, first of all, thank you for having me, and I'm glad you're enjoying the heat. It's 100, and it feels like 106 here in New York City, and I am boiling. But yes, terrible news. When you see a city that has been so enriched with box lacrosse for many decades, even going back to the 1974 Rochester Griffins in the original National Lacrosse League from 1974 and 75 seasons. And then, of course, with the newer NLL, the last 31 years or 30 years. And, it's I'd like to say that it's a surprise and this is some kind of shock. Unfortunately, the writing was on the wall. It is unfortunate that it has come to this, and let us hope that there is a local owner or someone who wants to keep the team in Rochester. But over the last few years, this has kind of been discussions have been happening in the background about, is this team going to last in Rochester? We obviously want the attendance to be a little bit better, but what this franchise has been building, what Dan Carey and that organization have been building, the coaching staff, I mean, they are having tremendous success at all levels, including at the NCBS level, which is American Box Lacrosse, which the Rochester team won the tournament last summer and are poised to do so again maybe this year. So at every single level, from the NLL playoffs to junior lacrosse, Rochester is thriving in box lacrosse, so we want it back here.
Yeah, Adam Levy, our guest here in the Sports Bar. And Adam, I'm of the opinion that, and I hope I'm wrong here from people I'm talking to, and as you pointed out, it was no secret. It's been widely reported that the team is on the market, and the whole setup was a little wonky to begin with, seeing the Pagulas also own the Bandits, right? They did this. It's not ideal, but nobody locally has stepped forward. And Adam, I went to the last game of the regular season for the Nighthawks. That they won, they might have had a chance to host a playoff game, but there was one thing that stood out to me business-wise. Nobody, whether that was an ad on the scoreboard, whether that was somebody that was walking around, there was nothing that was saying, buy your season tickets here next year. There's nothing on the website that said, buy your season tickets here next year, which that to me is the cause for concern. If there was a new owner, wouldn't you want to get selling right away? I'm going to start here with the two, scenarios we don't want to explore. And one of them, and we can say this is reality because this happened down in Dallas last year, contraction. Like, can you review that story? Because if we're saying, okay, there might be another buyer here in Rochester, but what led them to just say, you know what, there's not another buyer here that would be willing to move this, as it was known, I think, Panther City, this franchise around? What led? Because that to me is, for the players, for the league, that's kind of embarrassing that that option here. But could that happen again here?
Unfortunately, it could. I think one of the benefits that we have in this situation, and we saw with Panther City, where so normally what you would have is you would have a dispersal draft coming up right before free agency, and free agency is going to open up August 1st. But now, because there is a CBA negotiation, there might be a little bit more time as both the owners and the teams and everyone are working out what the next CBA is going to look like. So that might buy potential buyers in Rochester some time. We did see in the Panther City situation when there was desperate attempts to find local owners and they pushed back free agency, even, the CBA had already been in its final year. They were doing anything that they could to find local owners and no one could bite. And I was hearing that they were getting down to a point where they were going to sell it when they were going to lose tons and tons of money just to keep it locally, and no one wanted to bite on that, unfortunately. But then what started to happen was you were seeing that these other markets that maybe haven't had National Lacrosse League teams were interested, and that could happen here, and it would be unfortunate for a team not to be in Rochester, but at least this core of guys, this team that those Rochester fans have seen, could collectively be somewhere else. And whether that, there were rumors of Grand Rapids, Michigan, or Charlotte, North Carolina, does that happen, or do we have a full-on dispersal draft and this team that the Rochester fans have loved, they just go different places? And I think that's yet to be seen. Unfortunately, though, I think in this situation, like you said, if you're not saying we're going to have season tickets and there's, lack of advertising, and that's the thing about social media that I think has been so interesting from my point of view. You look at so many passionate fans and you hear their displeasure about the lack of promotion, the lack of advertising, the lack of support that they feel hasn't been there for this team for so many years. That's heartbreaking. It's tough to hear, and you would want more of that. And I don't think that that necessarily is because Terry Pegula was favoring the Bandits over Rochester, although that might be the case. Obviously, the Bandits have had tremendous success and sell out and do great, but Rochester has the potential to do that, and the pieces are there right now with this core of team, with the GM, with Mike Hazen as the coach. You've got great broadcasters. You've got a great staff up there. Everything is primed for success for the future, and so you just need someone to buy in.
Yeah, we're talking to Adam Levy, who covers the National Lacrosse League. He is the host of the Lacrosse Matrix podcast as well. I'm going to assume there's no such thing as a players' union when it comes to indoor lacrosse, because any other league would be screaming bloody murder here, Adam. Like you brought up, and rightfully so, like think of the staff, and there are good people that we know in town for years they're going to lose their jobs. But just at large, okay, players don't want to see jobs go away. You're talking like in the course of 2 years here, maybe how many team players on a roster there? Some 50 jobs that might be going away. Is the threat of contraction just kind of a negotiating tactic here that the league is willing to put out there?
Well, there is an NLLPA run by headed by Zach Currier, who currently plays for the San Diego Seals, and Reed Reinhold, former player with the Toronto Rock and Las Vegas Desert Dogs briefly. He is now retired. And I know that they've only been in this position as heads of the NLLPA for a few years, and they're fighting for these guys. And I know that the players themselves have really liked the fact that this current regime are current players, guys that have been around the players of the National Lacrosse League. They're communicating all the time. They're fighting for their rights. And unfortunately, we've heard in regards to the CBA negotiations, as the Toronto Rock owner, Jamie Dowick, has said publicly in the Lacrosse Classified podcast many months ago, that the negotiations look like World War III, which sounds incredibly ominous. But, to have this on the plate of the PA, as well as, fighting for the players' rights and so many other issues that they're going on, I know that Zach and Reed are doing everything they can for the players, but they are only limited to how much the NLL and the owners are willing to negotiate. And I've also heard that, they feel very frustrated with how much they're able to move the needle. So it does seem that we're at kind of a standoff here.
And I'm going to ask you a question that, admittedly, I know you don't have all the answers to this because, attendance is only one gauge, but I'm going to read you some of these franchises. Ready? Here we go. San Diego, Las Vegas, Ottawa, Georgia, Albany, New York, the Toronto Rock. These are all franchises, all markets where the Nighthawks had a better average attendance last year. And so, help me to understand, because if the league is predominantly ticket sales and advertising revenue off that, and you really don't have a big TV market, like, why abandon Rochester when they're kind of – is it fair to say we're middle of the pack at worst? We're never going to be a Colorado back in the day. We're never going to be a Buffalo we just don't have that style arena. But just your thoughts on, Rochester's not the redheaded stepchild here of the National Lacrosse League.
Well, it is interesting, and I think, I've put out a lot of attendance numbers during my coverage of the National Lacrosse League, and, it's interesting. One thing that people have always pointed out to me is that if you look at the sheer numbers, yes, you can say that one is struggling more than the other, but there are limitations for some of these teams. So take, for example, Las Vegas. That arena actually only holds about 5,500 people. In Toronto, which is a temporary arena now in Mississauga, they also hold only about 5,500 people. And so the percentage of the arena that has been filled in those places is about 80-90%. And then also if you look at San Diego, it's another smaller barn, and then you see growth. I think what is not promising for a city like Rochester, and when you look at the sheer numbers, is you look at what has been and you look at the trends and you say, well, why did this go down so much? Why is this not rising as it should, especially if we're a playoff team with now the league MVP and some of the best junior lacrosse, and it seems like the sport is thriving all over. And I don't know the behind-the-scenes money of it, but, when you look at the actual numbers there and you break it down and you would just say, well, as a heavy investment, and you're talking about several $1 million here just to own the rights to the team and then paying out. And I know we're not talking here about NBA or NHL contracts, but these guys still, there's a ton of guys that need to get paid. You say yourself as a potential owner, is this worth it, knowing that I'm probably going to lose a lot of money, especially in the beginning, and how much can I make in the long run?
Realistically, how much, whether that's you go back to like the Philadelphia, Rochester expansion, whatever it is, how much do these franchises go for? And that's a tough question to answer because Dallas just kind of folded last year. Here's what I'm thinking, Adam, because the Pagulas obviously have connections and roots, and they are invested in this town, and they need the Rochester market. They need us to buy PSLs for the Bills. They need us to come to training camp they need us to go to Amerks games. it would be easier for them to just say, no, we're kind of done here. And then all of a sudden, in a month here, the league would announce something like, oh, we, the league, have, sold this franchise. I mean, could the league actually be acting as an intermediary here for a possible relocation?
Yes, and this is something that was brought up during the Panther City situation. The league, I had heard, was even interested potentially if they had to, although it would have been to the detriment of the league in buying it outright and kind of having league ownership. But, I do know that Commissioner Frood and everyone at the National Lacrosse League was working day and night, conference calls with all of the Board of Governors to try and make something happen. And things almost did happen in Fort Worth and also in other markets as well. It just didn't finalize and come to a positive conclusion. Now, I do think that, the league is going to they have a model. The way I understand it is that, and you say the Amherst, and I understand that we want hockey connections with box lacrosse because that's the best association that you can have as a fan. Basically the same arena, same kind of pace of play, same kind of grittiness and toughness. And so that audience is, I think, immediately going to be drawn to the National Lacrosse League. But I know that if you look at the Ottawa move, they want to be tied to professional hockey teams if they can be at the NHL level. So that's where the Ottawa Senators and the Ottawa Black Bears came in. Is that something where, if we aren't talking about getting a team back in Rochester, are they looking at a market that has an NHL team that is willing to buy in because they might have a little bit more extra capital to say throw to a project that could thrive in the future, even if it won't work out in the short term.
Last one here, Adam, and maybe there's hope, maybe there's not, but I liken the analogy I drew yesterday was this, as that, all right, is there somebody locally to this point? It's like the movie Titanic, where the ship is about ready to go down, and they send off the warning flare into the sky. That, to me, was a warning flare, just letting everybody know, hey, because I would have thought if there was a new owner, you want that owner to take a victory lap. You want them, like, they would be celebrating, and you could sell tickets and advertising and everything else that the franchise would need to be successful here. I guess my question is, are you hearing anything about a potential new buyer that would keep the team here in Rochester? Adam, is there anything we can kind of report? Because honestly, I've asked a bunch of people. I'm not hearing anything.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything recently. I know that there have been talks and rumors of maybe people stepping up and starting to have those conversations, but nothing has really metastasized and turned into something really fruitful there. And so, unfortunately, as what I'm hearing at the moment, there is nothing really of substance that can give us a little bit of hope. But I will say, in terms of hope, again, we are at the end of June. We have at least another month to find an ownership group. And then if the league does decide to push free agency back again, and if the CBA continues to be a long, drawn-out process, which may actually postpone some of the season, and we obviously don't want that to happen as well. But, we may have another 2 or maybe 3 months to have them find something. If you look at the Panther City situation, that kind of was officially announced at the end of August, so there was more time there. So there may be a little bit more time, and I think we can have faith that the commissioner and the entire National Lacrosse League and everyone who is involved from the Rochester perspective is going to be fighting and making the case that Rochester should have lacrosse again.
Well, Adam, nothing would make me more happy to have you on the show, say in December, and actually talk about opening night here in Rochester. I'm not going to give up hope here. Adam Levy, our guest here. Adam, tell everybody about your podcast and where they can read more of your work.
Yeah, well, you can find my podcast on Spotify, the Lacrosse Matrix podcast. It is breaking down stats and information, as well as having interviews with players. So let's say a player just hit a recent milestone. It's diving in deep into the numbers and asking the players about them, which has been always a challenge because these guys are always just like, I want to go play. And they're like, I haven't thought about the numbers at all. Well, I push their buttons and make sure that they give me an answer on those. So definitely check that out on Spotify. And, of course, Inside Lacrosse has been a great place for me to have my writing, working with Steven Stamp, Terry Foy, Matt Kinnear, and that entire crew at Inside Lacrosse, one of the best resources for lacrosse, both field and box, that you can find.
Adam, appreciate the time and insight, and try to stay cool down in the city there. Appreciate it, Adam.
Thanks so much, Gene. Talk to you soon, hopefully with positive news.
All right, thank you, Adam. Yeah, we certainly hope for the best there too. Tim, I don't feel like we got anything positive. It paints a picture like, okay, are we contracting this team, or is this team moving to Charlotte or Grand Rapids or wherever it may be?
Again, the closer we get to July 1st, the more convinced, like minute by minute. Like, I was hopeful yesterday. It's like, all right.
Well, what he said there,
yeah.
All right, so August 1st is really, but even that, you could push things back. The dispersal draft for Dallas, by the way, was in July last year, July 29th. So at that point, but with the CBA being up, maybe that becomes a, hey, we need to save this. I don't know. And again, if I have the story wrong, correct me. No one's correcting me.
Unfortunate reality is you're right. And this time, people might care when you're right, because we're months from not having Major League professional lacrosse in the Rochester area for the first time. Well, it's happened once before, but this might be permanent at this point, and that's a real bummer.
Let's talk about something we all can enjoy, fantasy football. It's time that we start doing our homework. He is a proud member of Bills Mafia. You see his work on the NFL Network. Michael F. Florio joining us next year. It's Gene Battaglia, Tim Schneider here today on The Fan Rochester. Sabres GM Kevin Adams meeting with the media today. This in advance of Friday's start of the NHL draft. Talking about other topics, too, including the talk of trading J.J. Peterka.
I don't want to say yes or no because I just don't think it's the right time. And I can probably, after the draft and when we have other conversations, get into more specifics on things. But I just don't think it's fair to the player, to be honest with you, to really even respond to that. I think it's just better to keep it to the fact that we have a plan.
Hockey Hall of Fame announcing yes, Alexander Mogilny, Buffalo Sabre great, did get into the Hall this year. Hot one tonight for the Rochester Red Wings, 93 degrees here for those listening outside our area. Syracuse the opponent tonight. The Yankees in Cincinnati, the Mets hosting the Braves. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
See, the way my mind works, Tim, welcome back here to the sports bar. Danger is out this week. Tim Schneider filling in. It's that, all right, when we get to the 4th of July and we get a little bit more time, and this is the time where, all right, you got to reacquaint yourself. I want to know, what are the depth charts? I want to know what the top of the draft may look like. This is when I start to do my prep and talk with other people. I know I'm not alone. And we welcome in one of our favorites, not just because he loves the Buffalo Bills. He's great at what he does. Michael F. Florio, NFL Network here. We're today, Michael, you're out in California. I'm going to reckon it's a little more hotter here than where you are today, buddy.
Oh, it easily is. You guys know I'm a Met fan too and stuff. I'm seeing the Mets send out alerts of like extreme heat and you could get ice here, and I'm literally standing in my backyard right now. It's like 70 degrees.
Yes, the benefits of living in Southern California. Michael F. Florio, who is, by the way, from New York, but you are now doing great work with the network there. Michael, appreciate your time, and just we're kind of, to use the summer analogy here, it's like some people just kind of dive in the pool. We're just gonna kind of wade in, like little by little here when it comes to our fantasy football prep. And I guess in the early mocks, right, I could imagine that Saquon's going right at the top there, pretty close. But normally, what is the top of round one looking like here as we kind of dive into this?
The good thing for people who are just starting to get back into it is the early portion of the first round looks very similar to what it was last season. Like your first pick off the board in almost every draft is Jamar Chase. That's a little different than last year. He was more like a 5th overall pick last season, but then right behind him it's the same. It's Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. Saquon Barkley is very much so in that mix, even though I'm never going to be the one taking him. Bijan Robinson's in that mix. The big switch-up, I think, happens, though, in the middle of the first round where you'll see names like Puka Nacua. Malik Neighbors might catch some people off guard. Nico Collins is like a late first-round pick. Brian Thomas Jr. So the usual names at the start of the first round, but once you get to, like, the middle, later portion of it, you might be like, oh, I didn't expect some of these guys to be first-rounders.
The Saquon comment you made there, that's interesting to me. Is it the threat of Jalen Hurts siphoning off touchdowns? Has he done that in the past? Or is it the injury stuff? Like, why, if the value wasn't right, why do you find yourself just not going for Saquon more often than not?
Because he had one – last year was a career year, right? Like, and I'm a big believer that you shouldn't be chasing career years. Saquon could stay healthy and be amazing again this year. I don't think he's going to shatter the rushing record like he did last season. I know he didn't get in the regular season, but if you count the playoffs, and he could have broke it in the regular season had they not sat him out that final week. But what it is even more than that for me is, one, he had to play later into the calendar year than he ever has in his career. But the real reason is he had over 100 more touches last season than his previous high. And it's like 150 plus more than what his average season is. So paying for this career season is one thing, but all of that volume and all of that touches, given with what you add in the injury history there, plus everything kind of broke right for the Eagles last year in terms of they were dominating opponents, and they were just able to run the ball the second half. Their schedule is tougher this year, so I'm not sure it's going to be as favorable. But the real thing is just almost 500 touches where he had never even had 400 in another season.
Yeah, we're talking to Michael F. Florio, NFL Network, as we know who's going to be the guy, in Philadelphia. We know a lot of places, but there are some running back competitions, whether that's committee or I don't know who the guy is going to be. So we're still, actually many places here, including here, are under a month out here from the start of training camp. When we do get to training camp, what running back competitions, Michael, are you paying attention to the most?
For me, they almost all involve rookies. Like, what is the split in Denver going to look like with R.J. Harvey and J.K. Dobbins now being there? What about in Pittsburgh? Is Caleb Johnson going to be that new Najee Harris, which I think he will be? The Patriots is a huge one. I'm a big Travion Henderson fan, but they also have Ramondre Stevenson, who is the incumbent there, even though it is a new regime. Omarion Hampton was a first-round pick, but they already had signed Najee Harris, so how is that one going to look? And then my personal favorite, it's not as high-end as some of these others, but Cam Skattebo in the Giants. Like, I think he is their best running back. I think he can be their lead runner, but they do have Tyrone Tracy there, and, of course, still Devin Singletary, who everyone in Buffalo knows very well. So a lot of it was such a good rookie class that we got so much new talent. But now we got to watch, are these guys going to be getting the opportunity early on coming out of camp and stuff? So that, to me, not just for running backs, but I think for all of the camp battles, for me, the rookie running backs are what I'm most interested in this season. Another
layer to this, I don't know if it involves a rookie or not, but I think it's a cheat code, Michael, if you're in a PPR league, to try to identify, all right, this running back actually has the ability to catch a lot of balls. And, if you were on, ahead of the curve on, say, Austin Eckler a few years ago, or running backs like that, who are guys this year that in real football, we value more in fantasy football because of the PPR traits?
Yeah, and you are right. It is a cheat code. A couple of years ago, I wrote an article where I dove into the numbers, and in PPR, a running back target is 3 times as valuable as a carry. So, yeah, those are the running backs that we are most interested in. And to me, I think Devon Achane should be viewed as the running back that is favored to lead the league in targets this year. With Tua, after he got hurt, the offense pretty much became get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible, and that really led to a lot of targets for Achane. Alvin Kamara will always be up there, but I think R.J. Harvey, the rookie in Denver, is a really big one to pay attention to. The Sean Payton running back has averaged over 80 RB1 has averaged like 80-plus targets every single year. And when they don't get to that number, it's because the RB2 also has like 50-plus targets. So that backfield is huge for fantasy purposes. There's the guys like Jahmyr Gibbs and Chase Brown Bijan Robinson, that they'll still be highly used in the passing game. Breece Hall is an interesting one to me because a lot of people are saying that Justin Fields isn't going to throw the ball to the running back, but at a percentage, he threw just as high a percentage of passes to the running back position as Aaron Rodgers did last year. And, in fact, 2 years ago, Fields was even higher. So it's just a matter of how much are the Jets going to throw. But I do think Breece Hall, for that reason, is a little bit undervalued right now.
Rookies are always kind of a tricky thing, right? And if you're just going by just kind of the draft order, buyer beware because, Marvin Harrison – didn't have as good a season last year as Malik Neighbors, let's just say here. So whether you mentioned some of the rookie battles, but picking the right rookie can make a world of difference. So which rookies are you paying attention to as we approach July here, Michael?
No, you are 100% right with the rookies because if you look back at last year, which wide receivers didn't belong in the top 12 we thought? And it's like, Ladd McConkey and Brian Thomas Jr. and Bucky Irving was a league winner at the running back position. So, yeah, for me, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it is these rookie running backs. Like, I think they were the cream of the crop in this year's class. And the beautiful part about rookies is outside of Ashton Jeanty, who you should expect to use a middle-of-the-first-round pick on if you want him, I do think a lot of these rookies are values. Now, Hampton is still like a top 15 rookie running back, but Henderson isn't. And I think Henderson does everything that you want in a fantasy football asset. He has really good hands. He's a phenomenal pass blocker. And he is the most explosive runner in this rookie class, so outside of Gentry. So I think that, like, he is getting overlooked right now. I already mentioned R.J. Harvey. Caleb Johnson, I think, has the ability to come in and be that new Najee Harris there in Pittsburgh. But other than running backs, the tight ends are the ones that I draft the most because Tyler Warren is a beast. He thrives in the middle of the field. And say what you will about that QB room, I know it is what it is. They both can get the ball over into the middle portion of the field. It is actually where they are both their best throwing the ball currently in their NFL careers. And then Colson Loveland was handpicked by Ben Johnson to be his new Sam Laporta in that Bears offense. So you get them both as tight end twos, but I think they bring the upside. Think about what we were saying about Brock Bowers last year, Sam Laporta the year before that, Kyle Pitts' rookie tight ends never hit.
Yeah.
That has changed in recent years. So I like those tight ends a lot. And then lastly, I'm a Travis Hunter stan. I know the usage is a big concern, but if you're going for ceiling and upside, Travis Hunter is the play.
Yeah, and you know, with the tight ends, it's interesting now because Brock Bowers, maybe you didn't make that vet. It looks like you hit middle rounds. Congratulations to you. He's going to go high in this draft. So when you look at this, and it's kind of a question we ask, you know, annually because you always have, you know, whether it was Gronk or Kelsey in recent years. Well, those, you know, Gronk isn't playing anymore. Kelsey's a shell of what he was. But is it better this year to make the investment in the Brock Bowers type, Michael, or are you waiting there for some other opportunities in the mid to late rounds?
Look, if you want Brock Bowers, I'm not going to tell you he is a bad pick. He was a wide receiver one for fantasy purposes last season, and you get to play him at tight end. But you have to take him in the first half of round two. So basically, one of your top 20 picks is going on a tight end, and I just don't like my team when I go that route. I much prefer to use that second-round pick on a wide receiver or a running back. But it's all a preference thing. Like, Bowers isn't a bad value there. If you want a high-end tight end, though, Trey McBride sometimes falls into the third round, and I think that is the sweet spot because McBride was pretty much just as good as Brock Bowers. The only difference between them was they couldn't get the ball to McBride in the end zone. But if you could get him in the third round where you already have, say, two stud receivers or one running back and a receiver, I'm okay with that. But my early it's more middle round tight end. TJ Hawkinson has been the guy that him or I wait and I take like the rookies or Dalton Kincaid, some of these upside guys later. But yeah, I just don't like the build. But if you want that early round tight end, Brock Bowers is worth that price.
Well, same sort of question. It's kind of like how you're building a team altogether, right? Take the quarterback example. I mean, you know, if you had a Josh Allen, a Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, that can mask other deficiencies on your team. Also, it's kind of fun, right? But there's a price with that. So is there something to be said, though, for waiting for pick, say, you know, quarterback 20 or 21 on your board as opposed to spending big on a big-name quarterback?
My approach with quarterback this year is either pay up and get one of, like you said, Allen, Lamar, and Jaden Daniels are my three. But if you want to put Hurts and Burrow in there, I totally get it. I think after those top five, there is a noticeable drop-off, which is – and then there's, like, after the top five, there's, like, a group of 15 that if you told me at the end – like, you could jumble them up in any order, and if you told me at the end of the year this is how they finish, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. So it's either get that advantage at QB with one of the early ones, or what I then do is I'll wait and I'll take the upside shots. Like, Patrick Mahomes was one, but he's still going at QB 6. But, like, Justin Fields has been my guy. He's going QB 10, 11, 12 in that range. I think he's got the upside to be top 5, though, because of what he can do with his legs. So I could take someone like a Justin Fields, and if you're sitting there saying, well, I don't feel comfortable with Fields as my only QB, great. You shouldn't. You could get a Dak Prescott or a Justin Herbert or take your pick of, like, safe veteran quarterbacks that you can get in the middle to later rounds of drafts because it is so deep now. But there's only a handful of guys who are really true difference makers. And if you want one of them, Allen, Lamar, Daniels, I do think that gives your team a clear-cut advantage over the other teams.
Michael F. Florio, NFL Network, our guest here. Just a few more here because as we're doing this, and Michael, I've been playing for years, right? Sleepers. What's a sleeper? I mean, they don't exist anymore, but maybe at this point of the calendar they do here because we're all just kind of learning. Is there anyone right now that you're high on that others may be not paying attention to here when it comes to fantasy football?
Yeah, I think funny enough, we've gone past the point, at least in the sickos who are drafting now, rookies, everyone knows that they are the upside plays. So for years, it was always like rookies are the ones that you could take. And look, they still could easily exceed their value because no one is paying full price for a player that don't know what they're going to be. But I find that most sleepers now are veterans that tend to get overlooked, especially ones that are coming back from injuries. And, look, I know this is a Bills show. Bills fans don't come for me. But two of my favorites, sadly, are Kansas City Chiefs. Isaiah Pacheco came back last year after that broken fibula. And let's remember 2 years prior to that when Tony Pollard came back from the same injury. That first couple of months, he did not look good, Tony Pollard. But then he got back to being himself. That injury was behind him. And he's been great for fantasy ever since. Pacheco came back prematurely from this injury, never looked like himself. He already has said that he lost a lot of weight and muscle while rehabbing last season, so that was working against him. But he didn't have the same burst and explosiveness. And because of that, he's barely being drafted as a top 30 running back right now in early drafts. I was willing to take him last year top 5 before he got hurt. The situation is pretty similar. They didn't bring in anyone there to be a clear threat to take touches away from him. And instead, I think they brought in plans in case Pacheco isn't hurt. So I love Pacheco in that range. And then Marquise Brown isn't even being drafted as a top 60 wide receiver right now. Like, you can wait all day and get this guy. And look, I know he hasn't stayed healthy and stuff like that. If he was going as a top 30 wide receiver, I'd be like, yeah, practice caution. Top 60? I mean, yeah, I'll take the upside risk at that price because if he is healthy, let's not forget all the talk was Mahomes and Marquise Brown have fantastic chemistry. They work out all summer. Like, that's why he came back. He didn't want to go anywhere else. So I still think he has the capability of being like a lid lifter for an offense, and you're paying nothing to get him. So to me, I think the sleepers, we've kind of gotten to a range where it's veterans that are getting over for different reasons, but there are a lot of veterans that seem maybe they're boring or people have been burned by them, whatever the case may be, but those tend to lead to a lot of value.
Interesting stuff here from Michael Florio as we are talking. Michael F. Florio from the NFL Network. I have to ask you about the Bills before we let you go. Are you buying in on the Keon Coleman hype train here, Michael?
To an extent, yes. I'll say this. Keon Coleman his ADP right now in early drafts is around wide receiver 55, give or take. So it's even lower than it was last year at this time. And last year I was telling you draft Khalil Shakir because he was the cheapest of the Bills receivers. He was the safest floor. I thought he would be Josh Allen's number one target. But this year, you got to pay up a little bit to get Shakir. I still think he's a good value, but if you're looking for someone to exceed where you're taking them, Coleman would be the play. And sometimes if I miss out on Coleman, I throw the dart on Josh Palmer because Josh Palmer's going even later than Keon Coleman. And I know the Bills are spreading the ball out more and everyone eats and everything like that. Their quarterback is still Josh Allen. So if I could get a deep threat, and that's what Coleman and Palmer are going to be on this team. Like, they could do other stuff, but they are the team's top deep threats. If I could get the deep threat from Josh Allen at a super late price, that's something that I'm going to do every time.
Michael, you and I are both Met fans. I'm not feeling good about Frankie Montas, and you have Blackburn. Like, this is a team right now. I'm looking at the starting pitching that, okay, I don't need a division. I'd just be satisfied in getting into the postseason right now.
I do think there's better days ahead, right? Like, eventually Senga's going to be back. Manaya's coming back. Like, our highest paid pitcher hasn't thrown an inning yet, if you're a Met fan now. But I will say that for you fantasy baseball players, I'm pretty confident that Juan Soto is going to be the best hitter in baseball in the second half.
Well, last night, big opportunity, and one went down on strikes. Michael F. Florio, tell everybody now. It may be the off season for the NFL. You're just getting started here in terms of getting things together for fantasy football. What can we check out here? Can we get more of your work here as we're starting to do our homework?
Yeah, just for everyone not in the fantasy world, July 4th is a huge date because that is when everyone is like, it's back to fantasy season, like radio shows and everything, podcasts that I do some baseball stuff on, they're like, go all football. So, yeah, we're just about to that point where we're going to really be ramping it up. But NFL Network over doing stuff with the insiders right now. I got my podcast there. You can watch a video or audio NFL fantasy football show. And then I'm still doing stuff over at Rotoballer, actually working on an article today about what the Jets offense could look like with Justin Fields this season. And then I host shows there, Sirius XM on Rotoballer Radio. And lastly, if you're still not sick of me, I have a podcast called Florio's Football Show where I talk all things fantasy and football. So, and a lot of Bills rants there. Like if you listen in January, you're guaranteed to get at least one Bills rant.
Yeah, like I say this all the time. Now we got Hard Knocks up here, Michael. We got to figure out a way to get you to Rochester this summer, buddy.
I know. I'm so excited for I want to ask you guys, who do you think is going to be the star? Because every season of Hard Knocks, there's a player or two that you don't expect to be like a national name that gets it. Who do you think it'll be for the Bills?
All right, Tim, do you got an answer? I got one.
Keon Coleman.
He says, I think it's Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White, the rookie, not rookie, the veteran coming in that maybe that they're not going to have the starting job as they've drafted the rookie there. I mean, the Bills have no shortage of personalities on this team, though, Michael.
Yeah, it's going to be – I think Coleman is a good pick. Harrison, the rookie there, I think he's a good pick as well.
Yeah, right, that whole battle there. Michael, appreciate the time. I'd say stay cool, but you're out there in Southern California. It's always great weather. Thank you, buddy, for your time.
I'm sorry. You guys stay cool, but go Bills.
Thank you, Michael F. Florio joining us here in the Sports Bar. That's always a fun conversation, and it's not too soon. It's a football conversation when it kind of comes down to it.
I usually try to avoid fantasy talk until August just because that's when, like, once training camp kind of wraps up, then it's fantasy football season for me. But after that, I'm ready. Like, I've got notes from that conversation that I'm going to weaponize in my draft in 2 months.
That's it.
I'm amped for it.
Or at least it gives you the baseline.
Yeah, like now
gives you the baseline.
I got a head start.
Yeah, and when it comes, I think the thing too is like when it comes to the rookies, you just can't say this guy's going to be the best rookie because that's where they went to in the NFL draft. Like he brought up Cam Scatterby with the Giants. All right, now I'm be paying a little attention to the Giants because
very similar to Bucky Irving.
Right, Bucky Irving. Like who was on to Bucky Irving this time last year? No one.
Not a soul.
No one.
And look at how that worked out for those that bought in once they realized that was last year's answer.
Yeah, so
trophies.
Right. We are going to talk a lot of fantasy as the summer goes along. Don't you worry about that. Happy hour on the way. Not so happy. We recap that Nighthawk conversation. I mean, great info from Adam Levy. But why the Pagula sports machine, the PR machine, put a misdirection out there? You, the Rochester fan, we're gonna give you this. We want you to talk about this, the Buffalo Bills, rather than you potentially losing your lacrosse team. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. This is the Fan Rochester.
Needs more sleep when you can have sports excitement. WROC-AM, WBEE HD2 Rochester, and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Sabres GM Kevin Adams meeting with the media today. This is in advance of Friday's start of the NHL draft. Adams saying he's not married to pick number 9.
I don't think you want to go into it saying, "Hey, I'm just moving this pick no matter what." These are valuable picks, and but you're open to everything. And trust me, the league knows that I'm absolutely open to moving pick 9 if it's the right deal for us.
The Hockey Hall of Fame class of 2025 announced, and yes, former Buffalo Sabre Alexander Milgilny did get in. The class also includes Joe Thornton, Zdeno Chara, and Duncan Keith. Hot one tonight for the Rochester Red Wings. They open a series at home against Syracuse. The Wings have won 5 in a row. The Yankees dropped the opener last night in Cincinnati, seeing 2 teams tonight in Ohio. The Mets look to turn around tonight against the Braves. Gene Battaglia and the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
The Celtics are reportedly sending Drew Holiday to the Blazers for Anthony Simons and 2 second-rounders.
The Knicks are set to interview Minnesota Timberwolves assistant coach Mike Inori. This Knicks coaching search, no matter who they end up hiring, should be considered a failure.
It's not a failure. The NBA draft.
Mike Danger.
We're about accountability here at the Sports Bar.
Gene Battaglia.
We are not Buffalo Jr. in this town. Does everybody understand that? We're not Buffalo Jr.
I still can't believe you're trying to get me fired.
Good job, birthday boy.
All the hockey is done.
Oh.
The Calder Cup was awarded last night. The NHL draft.
The league knows that I'm absolutely open to moving pick 9 if it's the right deal for us.
JJ Peterka.
Aaron Rodgers told Pat McAfee this coming season is likely his last.
I think I get to say it because I am skinny. That guy's fat.
Fat.
Braves held off the Mets 3-2, sending New York to their 9th loss in 10 games.
95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
There are a lot of professions that I think require great skill. You got to learn a lot of things. One of them, and I know I'm going to offend somebody by saying this, because I think it's actually kind of simple, is public relations. PR, just knowing the basics of controlling your own message, making sure some things you're taking emotion out of. PR it's not complicated. It really isn't. And for the Pagulas, where you have this bad PR story, okay, potentially, where, hey, we want you, the Hamrick fan and the Bills fan, to buy your season tickets and buy merchandise and support our sponsors and do all that other stuff. Oh, sorry, Nighthawk fans, we may be ripping the team away from you. Well, we don't want to talk about the Nighthawks. And then the story comes today, and credit our friend Sal Majorana for having this in the DNC. Pete Goelli there saying that, hey, the Buffalo Bills are negotiating with St. John Fisher University on a long-term extension for training camp. Hey, mind you, training camp has been here since the year 2000. It's a long time.
25 years.
That is a great run. And maybe it's noteworthy because many, and myself included, speculated, hey, when the new stadium is open, you're going to want to do everything in your power to get people to go there and buy concessions and whatever it else is, spend money there. But the intrinsic value of training camp is, well, they like this from the team building standpoint. They like this from the let's build a competitive team. Like, there's a football reason why the Buffalo Bills do this. And as long as the GM, the head coach, and most importantly, the quarterback are all fine with this, then the Bills, well, that's the story today. Let's talk about this. You, the Rochester fan, we love you in Rochester. We're going to keep camp here for years, potentially, and we're negotiating with Fisher right now. We don't want to talk about the Nighthawk thing. We got a lot of good response from our Adam Levi. Well, good response. I guess people appreciating the interview because, look, it's not a rosy picture, folks. I think this team is out the door. Eli writing in, great interview with Adam Levy. Thanks for the insight. Well, I don't have high hopes of the team remaining in Rochester. I do believe with the right ownership, they really could boost their attendance quite a bit here. Spencer writing in, feeling sick to my stomach after listening to Gene and Adam. Rochester deserves the Nighthawks. Another person writing in, I don't believe they were neglected in the Nighthawks being. by the Pagulas because of the Bandits, but I do believe they were never going to thrive under them either. If they were owned by someone passionate to see them succeed, I believe they would. Thank you for listening, and I can't dispute any of that.
It's an unfortunate reality that it's just not a viable enterprise at this point, and
but it is, but it's not worth their time.
Correct. I mean, that's what I mean. As far as investing into it for what the means of a business end is, they're not going to take the time to make it a worthwhile endeavor, and that stinks because we've got a storied history of lacrosse in this area. It is a mill for Division I programs. We've got a number of professionals playing outdoor lacrosse right now. The PLL season's underway, and we should have a major league team in this region or in this area because of that.
31 years. You just don't let walk out the door. And when the release goes out that we're hinting around the new owner, I'd love for somebody to prove me wrong, but nobody has. There really isn't that new owner. And when we're joined by Adam Levy, the deadline is August 1st. That's the real deadline because that's when CBA, the free agency, essentially starts for this league. The potential of having a dispersal draft in late July, a league where you have the MVP, a dispersal draft.
That would be wild to think about. Actually, thinking about it is crazy. Some team just wins a lottery to get the first pick in the draft, and they land the MVP.
The MVP.
Crazy.
That can't happen. So that's why after talking to Adam, it's like, and this kind of hit me while I was driving home last night. That's not good when you're doing a sports talk show.
You brought it up here. You brought it here at the end.
Yeah, oh gosh. This is a franchise that's going to move. The Pagulas aren't going to just say, here's my keys, walk away. We're going to walk away. You deal with it. No, there's some value to this. They want their money. Even if it's a $500,000, they're going to want their money. There's got to be some value to this. They wouldn't just say, here you go, take over the team.
If they make a sale directly, they're the villain because they got rid of them and put them somewhere else.
Now the league is the intermediary and the league is the bad person. Well, he's not making the money on this. Did the league buy the team for the Pagulas? And the league is going to bend over backwards for the Pagulas. Why? Well, because they've got the flagship organization right now, and they wear orange.
The 3-time defending champion Buffalo Bandits. The Nighthawks just did that like a decade ago.
Yeah.
And here we are talking for the second time since then of not having lacrosse here.
I had somebody write in talking about could we do this as a community team? And those days are over.
It works for the Red Wings. That's it.
It only worked for the Red Wings because that was way back when in the day.
Right.
It would never work. Maybe I'm wrong, but what you have with the Red Wings and what you have with the Packers, even the Red Wings too, comes with an asterisk because, well, Naomi Silver and her family own the majority of shares. So it's community, but those in power have been in power for years and years and years.
Right.
So,
the team will always remain here because of the community aspect of it, but it's definitely managed and operated by one singular family.
Correct. So the one community thing, that's the Green Bay Packers. There's not a professional league that would just say, okay, you the community own this because, well, what if things go south? Where do you go from there? You can't do that. Not that we would go south here in Rochester, but that's why I think that you'll never see a let's sell shares to the team and this is a community-owned team. Like people that used to say that about the Buffalo Bills. Really? Like other owners are going to allow for that?
It would be fun to try. It just wouldn't work.
No.
And again, we're talking 6 days from a harsh reality probably. I know that August 1st is the deadline.
No, why do you keep on throwing out July 1st? Why?
On the 30th
No, Tim, to me that's already a done deal.
Okay.
So that's already a done deal. They have walked away. This is when actually our lease with the arena or whatever it is, that's when they're walking away. I don't think on Bobby Bonilla Day. I said that before you. It's very empowering to take the joke away from somebody. Yes, July 1st is Bobby Bonilla Day. I never heard that joke before. Okay. I don't think on Bobby Bonilla Day, July 1st, we're going to get the Nighthawks folding announcement. They're going by sending out that, well, we're, hopeful we'll find another Rochester owner or something like that. They're going to give that a happy. If anything, Tim, let's see, the 4th of July is on a Saturday this year. What about 4 o'clock on Friday, July 3rd? When would be a time you would want to bury it? We're not doing a show on Friday, July 3rd. I'll tell you that.
So maybe that is also part of the play. They're mapping this out to where they can hide the reality. They've already done the PR work on avoiding discussing it. So once they wipe their hands of it, the Pagula side of it, that they've already wiped their hands of it. But we've got 6 days until the league takes it over, and then we've got, 3 weeks to figure it out from there?
Well, and you credit John yesterday, a frequent caller to the show. And by the way, if you have something to add, if there's an angle that you want to bring to light here, by all means. It's a sports bar. Pull up a stool at 866-4FAN, 866-4326. Our handle, The Fan Rochester. He's at Womp. I'm easier to remember. My name, Gene Battaglia. That's with 2 T's. You can find us, though, anywhere on social media. the call from John yesterday pointing out, hey, Terry Pagula basically has got a little bit of a cash issue. All right, building that new stadium, and in the end, it's going to pay him dividends. But right now, you need the money to finish that thing, and the league giving the okay to allow investors to come in for the Buffalo Bills. Who wants to do that? Why would you want to do that if you're well, they did that because they needed the cash. Well, if you're going to do that, then lacrosse team in Rochester, New York is not something they're going to save.
Right, it's an easy cut as far as investing your resources into other more profitable things. Like, that's the truth.
Kevin Adams has this penchant as we shift gears. Whenever he talks to the media recently, he's going to give us a soundbite. You kind of shake your head. Now, this soundbite, I'm going to admit here, Tim, nothing is ever going to top palm trees and taxes, right?
Right.
Here are the things you don't like about living in Western New York, and we can't get the premier talent because we don't have palm trees here. We don't have high taxes. Yeah, the shrugging shoulder emoji that, essentially Kevin Adams put out there verbally. This is Kevin Adams, though, talking about memos coming across his desk. Why?
I get memos on my desk every morning from PR of things, and if I'm being honest, I feel bad for our fans. The stuff that's out there, there's so much misinformation, so much of it's nonsense. I mean, someone that has no idea what they're talking about reporting that we were going to buy Sammy out. We've never had that conversation once. It's ridiculous. So I don't even think it's worth me really getting into it, but I guess I'd just leave it at that.
Okay, there's so much there. I'm going to let you pick the topic here. Where do you want to start with that comment? What part do you want to attack first here, Tim?
All of it, unfortunately. Every time he speaks, I don't know him personally, but he drives me nuts. Every time that we have a Buffalo Sabres discussion and Kevin Adams is involved, he never says anything of value. He wakes up every day and does nothing, and he's done it for 5 years, and then he blames the media for actually coming up with a good idea that should be discussed.
Yeah, in fairness, I don't know who put out there that in the player, when he talks about Sammy, he's talking about Matthias Samuelsson. To kind of review, the guy, they gave him the money way ahead of time, and he has regressed dramatically. And it's one of the missteps amongst many. You could put it right at the top. And use your favorite cliche, good money after bad, cut your losses. Any sane person would look at that and say, do we want to move on, or do we want to open up a roster space and let somebody better take that roster space? Or it's worth discussion. So for him to say, we wouldn't even discuss it, okay, you're either lying or you're not doing your job properly.
And both of those are major problems.
That's major problem, okay?
Like, we bought out Jeff Skinner last year, who is productive, very expensive, but productive. They're not even considering, discussing, or thinking about getting rid of Samuelson's contract, who has not been healthy his entire career and is paid an exorbitant amount of money for what he brings to the team.
Now what Matthew Fairburn pointed out, who joined us in the 3 o'clock hour. By the way, you can download the Odyssey app. You can listen back to any of these interviews we were referring to and just listen, AUDACY, the company's name. Matthew Fairburn brought up the point, like, wait a second, maybe they're trying to trade Matthias Samuelsson and having these buyout rumors, reports, whatever it may be. Yeah, maybe that doesn't help. I'm just concerned that Kevin Adams has rabbit ears. Like, why is he getting so worked up? Well, he's getting worked up because obviously he made that decision. He takes that personally, that he gave him all that money. I just go back to the beginning of the comment, though. There's not a morning where a memo doesn't come across my desk from PR. There aren't things that come across your desk, okay?
Fax rings up. Kevin Adams, you're bad at your job. Happens every day.
You don't. Maybe for all these GMs there comes a breaking point, because I always, when it came to dealing with reporters, and you get a lot of criticism online. You do. Not in Buffalo, anywhere. When Brandon Beane went off on our friends Jeremy and Joe, I was like, whoa, okay, that's a little different, but he's making points, and he's entitled to kind of do that. What was Kevin Adams' point? I feel sorry for the fans because of misinformation.
The fans being lied to.
Wait a second. You feel sorry for the fans because of misinformation? No. You feel sorry for the fans. You put this crappy product on the ice. What other thing in this world where if you put 14 consecutive seasons of blah, 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 you're not going to that restaurant anymore. You're not buying that thing anymore. But because we have such a passionate fan base here, we're still sticking with you. But you're feeling bad because of misinformation. By the way, it's a good idea. It's a good idea to buy the guy out.
That is what gets me the most, is that it is a reason. And again, if Matthew Fairburn's point is accurate and they're trying to move him, fine. You have to position it in a way that he remains valuable for a return. But come up with a better way to say it.
Oh, well, you know what? All you have to do is say, hey, are you buying him out? No, you know what? He is part of this organization, and you could just leave it at that and pump the tires. And then we can kind of speculate, okay, are they trying to trade him or whatever it is? Last year with the Skinner deal, painfully obvious they were buying him out. And by the way, I agreed with that too. I thought it was time. Like, okay, he's not part of the future. Let's move on.
It made sense financially, and it made sense because the roster structure called for it. But he was a productive player. He's a good player. I would take Jeff Skinner on my team under a different set of contractual circumstances.
Can you play this again? Kevin Adams today talking about, doing like all GMs today have to meet with the media prior to the NHL draft, but hey, there's other things going on with the Sabre team. We're not really interested in when you're going to trade pick 9 or not. Of course, you're not going to tell us your plans. And this was his response to a report that the team is buying out Matthias Samuelsson.
I get memos on my desk every morning from PR of things, and if I'm being honest, I feel bad for our fans. The stuff that's out there, there's so much misinformation, so much of it's nonsense. I mean, someone that has no idea what they're talking about reporting that we were going to buy Sammy out. We've never had that conversation once. It's ridiculous. So I don't even think it's worth me really getting into it, but I guess I'd just leave it at that.
Yeah, I can't believe what I'm listening to there. And again, kind of goes with the theme here of this hour, I guess. PR. It's not complicated. If there's misinformation on your team that you run, you control the message. And I'm not talking about picking up the phone or sending a nasty email to whoever made it write that. Just make yourself more available, more accessible. And when these questions come your way, you can't be emotional about it.
Be present, be open,
be present and open,
and own mistakes,
and practice answering questions. Know what might be coming your way. Yes, you made a mistake with that guy. You don't have to say in black and white terms, we made a mistake here, but he's still an asset on your team. You could, if you said, hey, we're looking forward to seeing him at camp, okay, then you can't argue that.
If they consider him a valuable piece of the team, that's fine. But to say that they haven't even considered the thought of buying him out is an outward lie. It has to be. And if it's not, what is the next step?
Tim, do you know the name Susan Lucci?
Familiar with the name, actress, I believe. Couldn't tell you much about her.
Okay, so Susan Lucci, okay, when I guess daytime soap operas are still a thing, she was on this show called All My Children. Erica Kane, and Erica was this divisive figure, but she got you to tune in daily to All My Children, and they would give the daytime enemies. And it became a thing, and I'd have to look it up. For so many years, she couldn't win an Emmy, to the point where this is all that you knew about the daytime Emmys, that Susan Lucci, I would say the most recognizable name in daytime television in the 90s and the 2000s, could never win, well, my analogy here is this. Today, the hockey's version of Susan Lucci finally got into the Hall of Fame. I think Alexander Mogilny got more recognition about not being in the Hall of Fame. And every year we would have this conversation and, okay, his numbers didn't add up. Okay, maybe he wasn't good to deal with the media. All these excuses, but we would always debate it. And you would bring up, man, in one season in particular, he was really good, whatever it was, 76 goals. Amazing for Alexander Mogilny. Alexander Mogilny got into the Hockey Hall of Fame. It's overdue. And for Alexander Mogilny, if for nothing else, Tim, there's just a history lesson here. This was, Soviet Union, KGB. You wouldn't dare think of defecting. He did.
I believe in the trunk of a car.
Right. It's an amazing story. They should really do like a Netflix docuseries on it. And he was unbelievable for the Sabres, and he played for other teams too. So the idea that he was the first of many of these Russians. Like, does Alexander Ovechkin become Alexander Ovechkin without Alexander Mogilny?
Right, a trailblazer for the sport.
Yeah.
16 years of eligibility, finally gets in, and he probably, maybe not first ballot, but he should have been in 15 years.
So while I was talking to you, I looked up my Susan Lucci analogy. You want to take how many times she was nominated before she finally won?
14.
19 times.
That's
19
a lot of years.
Look, we're not talking about Susan Lucci if she wins in year number 2. Like, if the Buffalo Bills won Super Bowl 25 and then nothing else, are we looking back fondly on those teams, or are we just kind of looking at the story? Sometimes you can build a brand without getting the trophy. And
right.
I think for Lucci, 19 years of this, and indirectly, I think, Alexander Mogilny, hey, congratulations. You deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, but now we're not going to talk about him anymore. It's like...
Right, like once the ceremony takes place, like, all right, it's over.
It's over.
And there it goes. But last year there was so much vitriol from him being excluded yet again that I think that their hand was forced this time around, and rightfully so. He deserved that spot, so good for him.
Susan Lucci. Now, this is playing tricks on my mind again. You don't know who she's 78 now. Wow.
Probably a nice lady.
Yeah, very nice lady. Happy hour here in the Sports Bar. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. We got our segment called Shots coming up. Some of the stories that we didn't get to. We had an NBA trade that I think is worthy. And why when you watch SportsCenter tonight, there's going to be a Rochesterian in front of you? I can almost guarantee it. Not for the 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, but I'm going to say for the 11 o'clock tonight. What is the Rochester angle? It's not the Red Wings. It's not the Nighthawks. It's not the Amerks. What is this? If you want to guess at 866-4326, you're welcome to. You're not going to win anything, but it's Gene Battaglia, Tim Schneider today here in the Fan Rochester.
You're listening. .957 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester weekday mornings. Then let the sports banter make your alarm clock look like a bad idea. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Sabres GM Kevin Adams today meeting with the media. This in advance of Friday's start of the NHL draft. Adams says, giving his thoughts on trading J.J. Peterka.
I don't want to say yes or no because I just don't think it's the right time. And I can probably, after the draft and when we have other conversations, get into more specifics on things. But I just don't think it's fair to the player, to be honest with you, to really even respond to that. I think it's just better to keep it to the fact that we have a plan.
Hockey Hall of Fame class announced today, and yes, finally, Alexander Mogilny gets in. What is this, 14th try? The class also includes Joe Thornton, Zdeno Chara, and Duncan Keith. Rochester Red Wings game tonight. Stay hydrated if you're going. They open a series at home against Syracuse. The Wings have won 5 in a row. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
From the field to the court to the rink, the sports leader is there. 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Fun show today where we talked to Matthew Fairbairn about the Sabres. We talked to Michael F. Florio from the NFL Network, some fantasy football. We dived into the Rochester Nighthawks story with one of the across the authorities when it comes to journalism in lacrosse. Adam Levy joined us earlier. If you missed any of that, download the Odyssey app. You can go back and listen. Shots here in the sports bar. Time for your calls to at 866-4326. And we had a trade in the NBA, and I'm trying to figure out where this is headed. You almost forget that the Portland Trailblazers, they did have Drew Holiday for a hot minute. That was the trade they made with Milwaukee that sent Damian Lillard to the Bucks, but then Portland sent him to Boston. Boston sent him back, right back. He went. They're going to Portland this year's trade. Anthony Simmons, 2 second-round picks. Now, for the Celtics, like this is expected, right? They need to cut payroll. They're going to be down one of their stars. This is going to be one of those, all right, take your medicine sort of years for Boston, but Tim, what about Holiday? Is that a guy Portland will actually want to build around, or are they going to try to flip him again later this summer?
No, I think that's a salary dump for Boston that is going to end up being a salary dump for Portland in 2 years, because I think he's got 2, maybe 3 years left on his big deal, and Portland's got a window that probably doesn't exist for another 2 or 3 years.
I would do this in a New York minute. See what I'm doing here from the Knicks, because Holiday isn't like a guy you're going to build around. He's not the leading guy, but I think he's the ultimate glue guy who plays defense, has won a championship in this league. It wouldn't surprise me like Portland did this, and they're going to sit on him, and, we're actually going to end up with, convert this to a first round. It wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, you flip it later on for a potential profit to a team that can use him in this couple of years.
Right. So maybe it's not in the summer. Maybe it's, at some point before the trade deadline. But I always liked Holiday, and hopefully he's on a competing team here, because I don't think Portland's it. That looks like a major rebuild to me. 33,000. That's it. That's the seating capacity for the new stadium in Vegas for the formerly known as the Oakland A's. The groundbreaking ceremony taking place on Monday. Tim, is there anything more dumb than politicians getting together with just a fake little mound and putting their shovels into the ground, and you get the cameras all going around?
We've been harping on it all day, but simple PR, I guess.
That's simple PR, right.
It's pretty lame, almost as lame as the Wave, in my opinion. Not a fan of the Wave, but you got to do what you got to do.
The groundbreaking ceremony is pretty lame. The A's stadium in Vegas will have the smallest capacity in the majors. Now, I'm not counting what Tampa has right now or the Trop when they put the tarps over the top. Tim, I did not know that Cleveland actually downsized so much so the Guardians are a little more than 34,000 now.
Yeah, all those the wind tunnel conspiracy last year where you remember the Mo Vaughn sign?
Yeah, Mo Vaughn. Okay.
They chopped all those out.
So I got to explain for folks who didn't. Like, I went to my first game in Cleveland. This is the year 2016. The Mets are just coming off the World Series. And I go sit down like, what on earth is that? Like, you have like normal advertisers and, your cell phone company, your soft drink, Mo Vaughn Enterprises. Like, what?
Yeah, it turns out he owns a shipping.
Yeah.
And throw the former Major League legend's name on opposing teams' fields. But if you're willing to spend the money, I guess they'll take it.
Movon Enterprises. Well, that part is
all
actually
those seats
gone.
were gone.
Yeah, so back to the A's. They still have 2 more seasons after this one in Sacramento, the new stadium in Vegas to be ready in 2028. Tim, I look what happened with the Raiders, okay? And I think the Raiders, they kind of have a national following. Like, everyone knows a Raider fan.
Yes.
Jeff from Three Heads, good friend of the show, loyal Raider fan. Ask him anything, he's going to have a take right on the spot. Raider fans, I think that they get this wrong rap of, we're meatheads and we don't know anything and we grunt. No, I think Raider fans are actually pretty smart. This is their team has just been run by old Al, and, I don't think the kid's doing any better. Now, I don't know if they're going to turn it around with Brady in there. But here's where I'm going with this. All that being said, there are Raider fans across the country. No one across the country cares about the formerly Oakland, don't call them Sacramento, just call them the Athletics, the A's. When they get to Vegas, they're not going to have a fan base there. That is going to be a party every single series for the opposing team. You want to talk, has there been an opposing fan base or a home team that never has a home field advantage? Like the Marlins, maybe that would be the team that comes to mind. It doesn't seem like they go, but whenever you're looking at an opposing team,
yeah, that's just because there's nobody there at all. But Vegas is gonna bring bodies to that city, and that's a destination road game for a lot of teams' fan bases. So they'll go and dominate there. As far as the A's go, I mean, whatever. Sacramento, they're not even allowed to be called the Sacramento A's right now. It's just the Athletics,
which is wrong. Why wouldn't you want to embrace the team? Oh, we put a patch on the team. Like, now that you have the groundbreaking ceremony, why not call yourself the Sacramento A's and give that to that town? I'm trying to put this in Rochester terms. I'd be pissed.
Right.
I mean, I wasn't ticked when the Blue Jays didn't rebrand as Buffalo. We all kind of understood. That had nothing to do with, we were lucky to have the team and it was going to end. This is different. Like Sacramento's doing, you are actually being helped out by this town.
Yeah, to not allow that, or actually to formally ban it, essentially.
Yeah.
Interesting, but I don't know what the reason is, but maybe I'm just going to blame Manfred because it's easy, and he's burdened a lot of blame because he's not good at his job.
Arizona's Corbin Carroll landed on the IL. He got hit by a pitch, suffering a chip fracture. This was in his left wrist. Now, the strange thing about this story, Tim, this happened Wednesday in Toronto. They took x-rays. X-rays showed no damage, but his wrist, he's like, I can't bend this. This still hurts. Okay, let's take another look. Whoa! So who knows? They were not putting a timetable on this. Now, remember, Corbin Carroll, it was only a couple of years ago this team got to the World Series. He was a great player. Last year, a little half step back. Not good for the Diamondbacks. Also, Eugenio Suarez, who was on a tear last month. And first baseman Josh Naylor, your former Guardian, they're day-to-day with injuries, too.
Not great, and Zach Gallen has struggled all season long.
He's been brutal. Yeah.
The Diamondbacks have a talented team, and they're over 500, but I don't really consider them a contender, especially with all these injuries piling up.
Not in that division. Not that, okay, who saw the Giants being this good? Not me. So the Giants right now and the Padres and the Dodgers, that is a fun division, and Arizona, I think, is going to be the odd man out. Tonight, it's the PWHL draft. Now, if you're saying, oh, who cares? No. We could have a player from Rochester go number 1 overall. Did you know this? If not in the top 5, Haley Wynn, a defenseman from Webster. She played collegiately at Clarkson. She will likely be a U.S. Olympian. And we're going to talk to Haley Wynn this coming Thursday here in the Sports Bar, the PWHL draft tonight in Ottawa.
There is a lot of local talent. Thankful she's legitimately local, but the Kearney program puts out a number of professionals.
Right. We had the Kearney coaches in here talking and some of the players. And, yeah, the Kearney program for both the boys and girls is just amazing. And the fact that you're going to have Haley Wynn tonight. Can you imagine if she goes number 1 overall?
It seems likely.
Yeah.
So good for her. She was a guest, actually, on one of the intermissions during the playoff run for the Amerks. So insightful and a really, really supremely talented hockey player.
Yeah, and We wanted to have her on tomorrow, but they're gonna do like a lot of PR stuff, as you would kind of. So
PR, there it is.
Yeah, it's
Keeps
like
coming back.
photos, all around town. Like, and this is what you got to sell the sport, but it's the New York Sirens, by the way, have the number 1 overall pick.
Sounds like a perfect fit.
Yeah. Jordan Schultz is out at Fox as an NFL insider. Oh, my goodness. Now, what happened? Well, sometimes you got to play within the rules, Tim, even if you're an insider. And this is from the courtesy of the Washington Post. Sounds like the network made the move here, not Jordan Schultz. The NFL not happy that a media partner was tipping picks at the draft. Fox also not happy that Schultz tipping NFL scheduling info that was supposed to be kept quiet. Now, you also have this other story. Sure, getting into a heated dispute with another NFL insider in Ian Rappaport inside of a Starbucks at the Combine. That wasn't a good look either.
No, I don't know much about. I recall the thing with Rappaport, but if you're being fired for leaking stuff, like
no, follow me on this.
Yeah.
Okay. When you are credentialed, you have to follow by the rules, or this stuff.
Okay, got it.
Can happen. So, for example, for the Buffalo Bills, when we're credentialed, I'm not going to be able to say, hey, this player played with the 1s, this player played with the 2s, and oh my gosh, they were running this formation. I've never seen this formation. You'll get your credential revoked.
So it's
so
not a
that's the
Schefter
same
thing.
Yeah, so that's the same thing with the NFL. With the NFL, they want their TV partners. They want you watching the draft in real time. They don't want you looking at Jordan Schultz' Twitter feed, which is X feed, whatever, which is going to be 2 minutes ahead of time. Yeah. Now, me, I love that. I need that. And there'll be somebody else that's going to be doing this next year, whether that's somebody that's actually at the actual draft itself, because the product we see on television, not only do you have the TV lag, then they make the pick, and then it's all kind of staged and everything. It legitimately, you could be like a minute behind on TV, and when I'm watching the draft, I want the news right in the palm of my hand. And if you're the NFL, if you're ESPN, if you're the NFL Network, anybody paying for this, like, really? Really, we need more people watching us, not just looking at their feeds. So that's the rule. And Schultz just kind of said, no, I'm not going to do it. Well, he's too big to revoke his credential, but I'm sure Fox got a talking to from the NFL. Like, what are you doing here?
So he's no longer employed by Fox, but will still be able to do what he was let go for?
Probably. Well, I'm sure you're right.
Then I guess he's can't hate the guy for doing his job.
Well, the other thing, and this is the talk about privilege, and it wasn't until like years later we had Jordan Schultz on our show. There's like audio of him, and I'll give him credit. He was the first guy that said, nope, Josh Allen's going to be a superstar. You just wait. You're not going to, like, whoa, okay. And we'd invite him back on the show, but he got so big we couldn't book him. Then one time I sent him the audio, like, hey, you called this years ago. I'm coming on. And he came on a second time, and then we never got him back on the show since that point. But it wasn't until the second time I realized, oh, my gosh, his dad founded Starbucks.
Getting in a fight at your dad's
is right.
Awesome.
Like billionaire. How many times over? And the cat. So somebody that carved his own path, and this goes to the story we had about the FedEx founder, his son carving his own path, and Arthur Smith. I had no idea Arthur Smith came from that sort of wealth and carved his own path until like the obituary for Fred Smith, founder of FedEx. So, yes, does money buy you some doors that can open? Absolutely, but it's up to you when that door opens.
Got to put the work in.
Yeah, you got to put the work in. And Schultz is one of those. He's one of those fine reporters, for sure. I'm not going to say he will land somewhere, Tim. But the question is, wherever he lands next year, is he actually going to? Is he going to play by the rules at that point?
Right. It sounds like he's going to be just fine. He'll manage.
I think so. 866-4FAN, 866-4326. That is our number here on the Fan Rochester. As a fantastic show, we'll tell you what we had up. This is great. So we were talking earlier about, all right, the Nighthawks. And the Nighthawks, if they ended up folding, how unbelievable that would be for the league. Like, you have the league MVP. You have other guys like McConvey. You have such talent on this Rochester team. But to get the league MVP in Fields, Tom writing in, I bet the Buffalo Bandits win the lottery.
Make it an absolute. Nobody will ever win a trophy again other than the Buffalo Bandits. And honestly, it makes too much sense. It's spoken into reality. It's been manifested and is now confirmed fact.
Listen, if you can't laugh at that, gallows humor, right? We're in the gallows here with this team, with this franchise. I don't want to let it die. And if you're offended that I'm talking about the Nighthawks a little too much on the show, I'm sorry. There are people I know in that organization that are going to lose jobs. I'm sorry. It's a quality of life thing in our town. I'm sorry. The Pagulas can't get a pass on this just because they own the Amerks and other entities in this town.
It's a harsh reality that we're stomaching, and hopefully something happens in the next few weeks to salvage this program, but it's not looking good.
Paul Hamilton from WGR will join us tomorrow as we'll be, by tomorrow, 48 hours away from the NHL draft. We will also talk to our friend, haven't talked to him in a year, Ben Wagner, one of the voices of the Baltimore Orioles. Yes, we'll talk some baseball tomorrow on the show as the Orioles, their season kind of went sideways. Miss any of today's show, you can go back and listen in time. Download the free Odyssey app today. Thank you, Tim. Thank you to our engineer, Derek. And thank you for listening. The JR Sport Brief coming up next here on The Fan Rochester. Have a good night, everyone.
You're listening to The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.